Hi guys, this is Full Metal, and in today's video I'm going to cover a topic that I get a lot of questions about. And many people ask me about cleaning the Mossberg 590 shotgun. Now for many of you who own this shotgun, you know that the manual is extremely vague. It's really not worth the paper it's printed on. So I'm going to try and cover some of the most common questions that I get. The first being, how often do you actually need to clean this firearm? Well, Mossberg recommends that you clean this thoroughly every 200 rounds. Do I actually do that? Absolutely not. Use the 200 round just as a reference point. I'm not actually going to take this firearm apart and clean everything and put it back together until I actually start to see some substantial residue inside the receiver. Now, when does that happen? That's really going to depend on actually what kind of ammunition you're shooting. If you're shooting a lot of like low brass, 7.5, you can go hundreds upon hundreds of rounds. Typically, I'll go somewhere around, 5 to 600 rounds with 7.5 shot. If you're shooting something a high brass, it's going to have a little more umph, power, and charge behind it. Usually, you'll get a lot more debris inside the firearm, and then you are going to have to clean it, perhaps at 200 rounds. Okay, so let's say you check it at the 200 round mark and there isn't a whole lot of debris building up inside the receiver, but you notice that it looks like there's some, or a good amount building up down inside the barrel. The quickest, easiest solution is not to take the gun apart, but to use a bore snake. It's pretty simple. It has built-in wire brushes and the rest of it's just cloth. You can put a little bit of solvent on that, run it through the action, wait a few minutes, and then typically I'll put a lightly oiled patch down after that just to take the sting out of the solvent so that it's not sitting in your barrel, jacking all that up. But that's pretty much the easiest solution right there. Okay, so now let's say that you check your action and there is a lot of debris down inside that receiver. Okay, then it's time to do a detailed field strip. Let's begin by mentioning the barrel. You pretty much just I follow the generic barrel cleaning process. Typically, I'll just run a bore brush down the barrel, coat it in some solvent number 9. I'll let the barrel sit a few minutes, and then I'll just start running some patches down it till it's clean. And that's pretty much it for the barrel. Now let's get to these other parts. Right here I'll have the cartridge stop and interrupter, the bolt carriage, the bolt, and the trigger assembly. Now typically on these I'll lay these out under some newspaper and I'll give them a spraying down with some Birchwood KC gun scrubber that is synthetic safe, and that is the most important part. With any kind of gun scrubber you use, whether you choose to use Birchwood KC or not, I highly recommend that you always make sure that it is synthetic safe. Most cleaners are, but there are some that are not. And if it is not synthetic safe, it will destroy any polymer frames, any polymer parts, stocks, whatever. Even if you have a gun that is advertised as being all steel, I would still recommend you use synthetic safe cleaner, because as manufacturers are cheapening down their manufacturing process, they're slipping in a lot of polymer parts in there that they're not telling you about. So just to make sure that you don't cause damage to your gun or that it's going to fail prematurely, get synthetic safe cleaner. Okay, so after I hit these parts with the gun scrubber, I then go over each of them with a nylon brush, or a toothbrush works great. For the trigger group assembly, you typically get a lot of debris, that like large chunks that you need to take off with the brush up toward the top here. Not so much down toward the bottom and the actual trigger mechanism, working mechanism itself. It's not too bad. It's because you can see how open it is. When you hit that with the gun scrubber, it flushes out pretty well without really needing a brush. For the actual bolt, the only part that you really have to take care of is that when you get a lot of powder residue building up on the face of the bolt, that you're not having it run down into your firing pin. So you want to try and keep down around that firing pin as clean as possible and prevent anything from flushing back into there and hardening. As far as cleaning off the bolt carriage, the cartridge, and the cartridge stop and interrupter, there really isn't anything special to say about those. I do put a light coat of oil on the cartridge stop and interrupter, and I make sure that I coat the outer edges of the bolt carriage. Reason being, as you can see from the wear marks, this bolt carriage sits inside the receiver and it makes contact with the receiver when you're cycling the action. So those are some high wear points right there. As far as the bolt goes, I just put a light coat of oil around the outside of the bolt. Just be careful that you don't have oil running down into your firing pin. As far as the trigger group assembly, the only two parts on this that I put a very small drop of oil on is one at the base of the hammer, and the other one is the pin at the top of the trigger. Those are two high use parts on the trigger assembly, so I oil those two parts. Okay, so let's talk about the inside of the receiver. Pretty much doing the same thing again, spraying it out real good everywhere pretty much with the gun scrubber. And then when I'm hitting it with the brush, you just want to make sure, and this is going to go the same for both sides, you want to clean out the upper channel. That's going to be for either the cartridge stop or the interrupter, and then make sure you clean out that bottom channel all the way back, because that's going to be where your bolt carriage rides along. And then you also want to make sure that this divot back here is clear so that your safety functions. And for the receiver, that's pretty much it. I've never really had a need to do anything with the mag tube itself. I never actually put any oil inside the receiver itself, because pretty much when I drop the oiled bolt and bolt carrier in here and cycle the action a few times, that pretty much takes care of it. You don't have to go overboard with oiling a pump shotgun. They're pretty rugged, durable. They just run. Okay guys, so for as far as cleaning the shotgun goes, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but for me, this works. I hope this helps you, and as always, be safe and thanks for watching.